Welcome to our deep dive into Jod Lore. You guys sent in a doc with tons of fascinating, if slightly bewildering details about a place called Jod's Big Mansion. It's like this crazy whirlwind tour of a universe that operates on a totally different set of rules.
Oh, it is a feast for the imagination. This doc, we've got just one source document, but the detail in it is unreal. It's staggering. It's almost like listening in on someone's stream of consciousness, someone totally immersed in this world.
Right, and our goal today is to try to explore this world together and sift through all these seemingly random facts and figures and see if we can uncover some underlying logic or recurring themes or hidden meanings in this thing. It's like we're putting together one of those huge cosmic jigsaw puzzles, except the pieces are holographic doctors and heavy gaming milk and time-traveling uncles.
Right, and the first piece of this puzzle, the one that really jumps out, is Jod's Big Mansion itself. This isn't just some big house. It's a structure that encompasses space and time and everything. It floats. It houses a miniature universe that never stops expanding, and for some reason it has a designated goose area.
Yeah. Wait, a goose area. Okay, that's definitely a first for me. In a mansion description, makes you wonder what kind of geese are we talking about here? Normal Earth geese or something a little more exotic?
It's one of those details that just makes you want to learn more, And then there's the history of the mansion. It was passed down from Jad, who got it from his dad, Jud.
Yeah.
And get this, Jud accidentally created a star with a fart.
Hold on, a star from a fart now? That's some serious digestive power. I'm almost afraid to ask what he had for dinner that night.
Well, it seems like humor is definitely baked into this lore, and not just silly details. We also learned that the mansion was destroyed in 1969, a very specific year, and then it was restored using something called a large emerald. Suggests some serious forces, maybe magical or cosmic, at play in this universe.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the economics of this place. Everything costs $69. This number pops up everywhere. Is it random? Is it a cosmic joke? It's hard to say, but it definitely adds to that surreal kind of atmosphere.
Consistency, even in absurdity. That's an interesting point. Even the mansion's price tag is this astronomically high number, all in $69 increments, makes you think maybe there's a deeper meaning to this number, or if it's just a playful quirk of the lore.
So let's step inside this bizarre mansion and meet some of its inhabitants. It's a colorful cast of characters, to say the least. We got Jod's very generous ancestor, known for his gaming skills and possession of some powerful artifacts. Gaming seems like it might be a pretty big deal here. Then there's Jacom, whose preferences, shall we say, are described in very vivid detail.
And we can't forget about Jod's time-traveling uncle. He used a device called the Trawler's TARDIS to actually limit the mansion's growth. It makes you wonder if maybe its growth could have had some serious universe-destabilizing consequences.
Whoa, talk about a family reunion gone wrong, right?
Yeah.
But it does raise an interesting point. If even the mansion's creators thought they needed to limit its growth, what does that tell us about the potential power and danger this mansion could represent?
It definitely suggests that we're not dealing with just a wacky, oversized house here. There are forces at work here that could reshape reality itself. And then there's Scod, a chocolate-loving Sontaran defector.
Jod, a Sontaran. That's a fun little nod to classic sci-fi and tells us that this universe is full of different species.
Absolutely. We even have a Cancrux student named Mudspud attending the great Jod Academy. And don't forget the clones of Jad that serve as the mansion's own military force. It's a real melting pot of cosmic proportions.
And somewhere in all of this, there are holographic doctors with a very curious catchphrase. Please state the nature of the medical emergency. It's reassuring and unnerving, all at the same time.
Indeed, and we can't forget about the humongous climate control system. This thing allows everything in the mansion to exist in 3 states of matter at the same time. So imagine you could drink a glass of liquid, solid, and gaseous water all at the same time. It's really mind-boggling.
Definitely challenges our understanding of physics. And then there's this thing called the simulacrum, this virtual reality world. You access it through this weird ritual that involves a Jod campfire and some kind of artifact. It's just another layer on top of this already bizarre universe. What kind of experiences await in the simulacrum? Are we talking like pure escapism or something deeper, more profound?
It's a question worth thinking about. And let's not forget that the mansion itself is partially made of living tissue. So this is how it regenerates and can be cloned. We're talking about a structure that's basically a living organism, always changing, always adapting.
It's like something straight out of science fiction, but stranger even. And speaking of strange, we haven't even touched on Jod himself. The doc paints a fascinating, if maybe a little eccentric, picture of his day-to-day life.
Yeah, imagine this. Jod starts his day with a nice, peaceful walk through this massive mansion. He enjoys some toast with honey and a glass of heavy gaming milk.
Heavy gaming milk. Okay, okay. You gotta explain this one. This sounds like something straight out of a fever dream. What is this milk and why is it connected to gaming?
Well, the doc doesn't hold back on the details and says heavy gaming milk comes from the udders on Jod's heavy gaming PC. And it's not just a drink either. It seems like a whole subculture within the mansion. There's even mention of spearmen trying to drink straight from the udders, which led to some complications.
Spearmen drinking from computer udders. This is definitely new territory for me, but it makes you wonder, what is it about this heavy gaming milk that's so appealing? Is it like a source of power or pleasure or enlightenment, or is it just really, really good milk?
That's a question left unanswered, but the heavy gaming milk saga doesn't end there. Apparently, some stale milk ended up creating this creature, also named Heavy Gaming. It's described as this 2-foot-tall, gun-toting, belt-of-bullets-wearing entity.
Wait, hold on. Stale milk created a gun-toting creature. This lore is getting weirder by the minute. Is this supposed to be funny or scary, or is this like a PSA about letting your milk expire?
It's a mix of humor and body horror and just plain weirdness. But maybe there's something deeper going on here. Perhaps Heavy Gaming, the creature, is like a symbol of the unintended consequences of our obsessions. The things that get out of control and take on a life of their own.
Okay, I need a second to process this. We've got this mansion that's alive, milk-producing computers, and now a creature made from spoiled milk. It's all so bizarre, but somehow I can't look away.
That's the beauty of Jod Lore. It keeps you on your toes. So beyond the heavy gaming stuff, there's Jod's collection of, well, everything. Jod's big bugle, Jod's big smithing table, Jod's big metronome. It seems like he likes his stuff big and impressive.
It's like this running gag, right? Jod's big something. But is it just a gag, or could it be more like a reflection of his personality, a need for power and control, or maybe even like a commentary on consumerism, our obsession with bigger, better, more?
You're onto something here. Those little details often hide the most interesting interpretations. And don't forget about Jod's big metronome. This thing can pause time. That's not just a big object. It's like a symbol of control over time itself.
Makes you think, what would Jod do with that kind of power? Would he use it for good or for himself, or just to make sure his toast is always perfectly golden brown?
Again, we can only guess. And then there's Jod's big business selling huge jars of honey. Remember those honey top toast breakfasts? It all comes together. Even in this crazy universe, capitalism finds a way.
And everything in Jod's big business is priced at $69. Of course, that number just keeps popping up. It's feeling less like a coincidence and more like a deliberate choice.
It might be the key to understanding something deeper in this lore, but let's switch gears for a second and talk about the conflicts and rivalries that have shaped this world. It's not all heavy gaming milk and sunshine. We learn about a rivalry between Jod and someone named Jerd. It all started with this thing called a shunt.
A shunt? What is a shunt? Is it like some kind of cosmic event or a personal insult or maybe a bad business deal gone wrong?
The document's a bit vague on the details, but it does say that this shunt made the mansion more popular for a while. It sounds like some kind of power move, maybe a play for attention or control.
It's funny how even in a universe with holographic doctors and milk-producing computers, you still have these petty rivalries and this desire for fame. Some things are truly universal.
Yeah, and speaking of universal, let's not forget about the King's anthrax scare brought on by those spearmen we talked about before. It seems like even in a mansion that breaks the laws of physics, you still have to worry about disease outbreaks.
Yeah, and then there's the reign of Jodevil, the mansion's evil ruler. He was overthrown by this prophesied funny man named Declan. It seems like even in this chaotic world, there's some kind of order good eventually wins over evil.
And it's interesting to note that some people didn't think Declan was all that funny, even in a universe full of talking computers and goose areas. Not everyone has the same sense of humor.
Very true. But amidst all these huge events, there are these smaller, almost accidental details that really grab you.
Exactly. The document's full of them, like little breadcrumbs leading us deeper into the mystery of Jod Lore.
Like those Jod particles with their Jod charge forming eudicular geometry at a jodoscopic scale. It sounds like something out of a physics textbook, but like way weirder. What do you make of all this?
Well, even in our own universe, we have stuff like quantum mechanics and string theory, describing how reality works at the tiniest level, and it's all very strange and counterintuitive. So maybe these Jod particles, they're like the building blocks of Jod's universe working in ways we can't even imagine.
So like a whole pocket universe with its own rules and laws. That's pretty wild. And then there's this Jod's big crispy cake filled with this mysterious Jod's crisp fruit. Is it a delicacy, a religious thing, a weapon of mass destruction?
Another one of those things that raises more questions than answers. Right. But It's interesting how food keeps showing up in this lore, the toast, the honey, that heavy gaming milk. Now, this cake makes you think maybe food has some kind of symbolic meaning in this universe, like sustenance, pleasure, temptation even.
That's a good point. And who could forget the Five Nights at Jetty's incident that Jod bit Jod during a performance, and now the tooth is on display in the Jodseum. A grim reminder that even in this whimsical world, there's still danger lurking around.
And it shows how this lore is always kind of looping back on itself, even when something's destroyed or long as it's preserved or reinterpreted and becomes part of the mansion's history. And speaking of history, remember that crazy hallway riveting gameplay with the rumor that if you beat it, you get warped to another reality. Makes you think maybe the whole mansion is like a gateway to other worlds, other dimensions.
That's a trippy thought. Imagine the possibilities. And then there's the otter residential area, described as fairly chungus, whatever. That means we know everything in Jod's world is supersized, but why otters? Do they mean something special in Jod lore?
Maybe they represent something, you know, playfulness, adaptability, community, or maybe it's just a random detail thrown in for laughs. But even the randomness adds to the whole tapestry of this world. Yeah.
And then there's the mimic animatronic locked up for attacking an employee with a car. I'm sensing a pattern here. Lots of things in this mansion seem to be pretty violent. Even the inanimate objects makes you think there's some underlying tension, some kind of instability in this universe.
You're picking up on something important there, and it goes back to what we talked about with Jid trying to stop the mansion from growing. What happens if all this controlled chaos breaks free? It's like this whole world is holding its back on the verge of something catastrophic.
Whoa, that took a dark turn. But you're right, there's this feeling of unease, like something's bubbling under the surface, even with all the absurd stuff going on.
And yet, even with all the chaos and craziness, there's something consistent about Jod Lore. The rules of this universe, no matter how bizarre they are, they seem to be followed. It's like whoever created this lore had a very specific vision, even if it's hard for us outsiders to fully grasp.
Like we're peering through a funhouse mirror trying to make sense of a world that works so differently. But isn't that what this is all about? Pushing our boundaries, exploring the unknown, embracing the strange and wonderful.
Exactly. And what's so cool about Jod Lore is that it doesn't give you all the answers. It throws all this wild stuff at you and wants you to wrestle with it. Make your own connections and draw your own conclusions.
So what's the takeaway here? What's the meaning of Jod Lore? Is it just a bunch of random nonsense, or is there something deeper going on?
I think it reminds us that meaning isn't always obvious. Sometimes you got to dig for it, piece it together from these random bits and pieces. Jod Lore is a challenge to how we see things, an invitation to look beyond the surface and find beauty in the unexpected.
It's also amazing how creative it is. The imagination on display here is mind-blowing. It reminds us that there are other worlds out there, worlds we might never fully get, but they can still inspire us, challenge us, and broaden our horizons.
Absolutely. And maybe in trying to figure out Jod Lore, we learn a little about ourselves, about our own sense of wonder and how easily we can be confused.
Well put. This has been a wild ride. A trip through a universe that's funny and unsettling, bizarre, and strangely profound. We've met holographic doctors, milk-producing computers, and a creature called heavy gaming. We've explored this crazy Jod's big mansion, uncovered ancient rivalries, and thought about the meaning of Jod particles.
It's been a real journey, one that's made us question everything, laugh a lot, and just feel awe at the power of imagination.
So if you're listening and you're feeling adventurous, we encourage you to go find more Jod Lore, dive deeper into the strange and wonderful universe. You might find that the more you learn, the more questions you have, and that's fine. Sometimes the best journeys are the ones that leave us with more to discover.
And remember, even when things are absurd and nonsensical and just plain weird, there's always something to learn, something to appreciate. Keep an open mind, embrace the mystery, and never stop exploring.
Until next time, happy deep diving.